But how's the level here, or rather there? Hannah?
What is it asking you?
Sorry?
What is it you're asking me?
No, they were asking again if you had someone else was asking if you had earphones. I told them today you don't have them. Abu Stein, mtu amesikia. And a very good morning to you and welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Mote. Today, it's a totally different show today, a slightly different edition of what we're going to do because tomorrow marks 10 years since the promulgation of the Constitution, and this is a point where you just take a look back, take stock of what's worked, what hasn't. There's been talk, really rife talk of constitutional change. The President has called this a constitutional moment as well. We discuss all of that and so much more with a very able panel right here in studio. But as always, we take a look at the front pages of our dailies this morning. Welcome to the show. My name is Jeff Mote, and don't forget, you can get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone at only 10 shillings, by the way. The number that you need is star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number and get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. You don't need any data for that. You don't need a mobile app on your phone either. Just the number star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number and get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. It's brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom as well. Speaking of, let's look at that front page of the People Daily as well. Front and center on the copy of your PD. CBK alert over new pyramid schemes. At a glance at what they're looking at, entities have styled themselves as online global networking companies. One of the firms is Crowd1, which has received condemnation over its activities. Regulators issued warning because many transactions have moved online. And that really is the crux of the matter right there. Regulatory agencies are warning the public for re-emergence of fraudulent financial forums taking advantage of COVID situation to defraud Kenyans. That story is the lead story in your copy of your People Daily today. You can get that right there. Also in your copy of your PD, while learning could resume before January. Education CS George Magoha says there is hope the infection rate is stagnating and ministry will reconsider its stand if it remains so. But a parent is in court to compel the government to reopen the institutions. That story can be found as well in your copy of your People Daily on page 6 therein. Also in your PD, as they talk about schools reopening or not, we keep a keen eye on the numbers as far as the infection rates are concerned. Yesterday, in the last 24 hours, 246 testing positive, bringing the total number in the country to 32,803. That, of course, is as of yesterday. And even as we take a look at that particular story, Katiba at 10 also been marked in our sister paper, the People Daily. Irony of legislature that mars oversight with a body that was given the work to, check the excesses of the executive and play a keen oversight role. Some people saying there's a weak parliament, and the reason for that is discussed right there in a copy of your People Daily on page 4. We have a member of the August House as well in studio this morning, so we'll be having that discussion as well right here. Politically speaking as well, in your copy of your People Daily, Ruto says Raila is shielding COVID thieves. It's been talk of he said, she said, talks of, an extensive and really thorough audit of these particular accounts and expenses to see really what happened to the funds. And that's really made political fodder for political players of the day. That story can be found on page 8 of your People Daily this morning. So once again, like I said, even if you're far from your vendor, you can get the copy of your People Daily straight to your phone with the luxury of convenience right there. And the number that you need is star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Let's move it along to the front page of your Daily Nation now. Ex-Uhuru and Raila men lead Ruto crack team. Deputy President William Ruto is banking on two former senators who sat in the National Coordinating Committee of the National Super Alliance and a former cabinet secretary who was President Kenyatta's chief election agent in 2017 to show up his 2022 presidential campaign. Regional networks key to strategy with plans to deploy grassroots mobilizers. So that's what they're looking at front and center as far as that story is concerned. As you can see right there, key people of interest, Mr. Johnson Muthama, Dr. Boni Halwale, Mr. Davis Chirchir as well. Some of those who, from the story in the Daily Nation, are front and center in terms of strategy, really key to the presidential campaign for Dr. Ruto. That story can be found as well in your copy of your Daily Nation. As look at that also in the Daily Nation, Obado and his 4 children face arrest in theft case. This case brought forward by the DPP yesterday, ordering the arrest, of course, on this particular issue in terms of impropriety use of county funds. That story can be found as well in your copy of your Daily Nation on page 6 therein. Let's move it along to the front page of the Standard now. Why you should not eat that school fees. Of course, a learning resumption could happen before January, and the Standard just making sure that parents are aware of this particular situation. On a day community-based learning was blocked, CS Magoha says schools may reopen before January if COVID numbers fall. He's been reiterating the fact that the Ministry of Education really following the patterns and the trends as far as what is happening with the curve of COVID-19, and being informed from the Ministry of Health as to what would be proper for the children to resume classroom activity, and that is a story that you can get on page 6 of your Standard this morning. Also in the Standard, Governor Obado and 4 children to be arrested. DPP gives detectives green light to arrest Migori Governor Kin and his business associates over alleged embezzlement of 73.5 million shillings from the county coffers. And that story can be found in your copy of your Standard on page 4 therein. And even in the great cloud of COVID-19 and the pandemic and what it's brought, there's also a silver lining and some good news as far as the health sector is concerned. Kenya's joy as the continent, not only Kenya but the entire continent, is declared free of polio. Africa yesterday declaring free of polio, marking the second big achievement after smallpox was eradicated in 1980. And that particular story can be found in your copy of your Standard, and that story is on page 10 of your Standard. Finally, from page of the Star now, why Haji wants Obado and his 3 children jailed. He is accused of siphoning the county's cash through proxies, and the DPP ordering the governor's arrest over loss of Migori money. That story can be found in your copy of your Star therein. And even as I talk about that, also the Star keeping an eye on the COVID-19 scandal. DP Ruto protests Jubilee's double standards in war over corruption. That can be found on page 2 of your Star this morning. So lots to discuss as far as your news cycle is concerned. But today, a keen eye, of course, as we're on the eve of marking 10 years on the promulgation of our Constitution. We want your views on this as well. I'll be taking those. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Our WhatsApp number scrolling at the bottom of your screen. So welcome to K24 this morning. It's all about the Constitution at 10. That's where we are right now. And you do also have a question of the day this morning. We'll have that up on screen for you to chime in as well. 10 years ago, Kenya promulgated the new constitution. In your opinion, what are some of the gains made since then? So what are some of the gains made since the promulgation of Kenya's constitution? You can WhatsApp us with that number at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me on Twitter at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. What are the gains made since the constitution was promulgated 10 years ago? Get us on WhatsApp with that particular number, or get me on Twitter at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Time to have that discussion, and right here in studio is a man who has been there, was there as the constitution was being promulgated, and right now is chairing the committee that's looking after the oversight of the implementation of this particular constitution. We have MP Daragwa Jeremiah Kioni. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It has been quite a while, since COVID began.
No, I don't think
we've been distant friends.
I don't think I've been here since, I think, late February or early March.
True.
And it feels new, and it's nice to have, to see the comeback,
right?
Slowly happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to encourage one another, mm-hmm. and sooner than later things will be normal.
True.
And especially those of our Kenyans who have lost their livelihood, mm-hmm. It's really a tough time. Even as we talk about Constitution and 10, mm-hmm. this COVID-19 seems to crowd everything else out. But we are here. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Absolutely. And thank you for making time and coming back to the show. Asante sana for that. Also joining the conversation via Skype is Millie Lwanga. She's a governance expert. Good morning, Millie.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Asante sana. I just wanted to set the stage on this because as we started the show, we saw those pictures of, the former president, Kibaki, right there as the constitution was being promulgated. And I want us to just go back 10 years and talk about that instance, that day. Tomorrow will be 10 days since that happened. For you, Bwana Kioni, where were you at that particular moment in time as the constitution was being promulgated?
I was in Parliament.
Right.
And I was at Uhuru Park, and I can tell you it was a momentous moment, a great moment for us as Kenyans, and that ushered a lot of hope. And we looked forward to a time when we would concentrate on development of the country, dealing with issues that affect Kenyans perhaps in a better manner than before.
Right.
And we also had gone through a period of when there was that clamor for a new constitution, it was not quite an easy time. A lot of people were arrested. We lost lives. There was a lot of violence that had seen that clamor there before, perhaps before the 10th Parliament. But so it was a very nice feel to be at Uhuru Park and to see a document that was going to govern us as opposed to the one that we had since 1963.
Right.
I need to mention that it actually, we came to realize, quite a number of us then, that the document that we were using since 1963 had been signed by the Queen. It had not been signed by any president in Kenya. So to have a document now signed by our own was a feeling of, yes, a little achievement and a mark of independence.
Right.
Yes.
Millie, let me get you in on this as well. Your space and time, where were you when this was happening? And more so, even as we move the conversation forward, do you feel with that particular document at that time, it had actually managed to capture the hopes and aspirations of the country? Because as Honorable Kioni says, a lot of struggle, a lot of intimidation had happened for this document to get to where it was. Very many people, having to, suffer to get this document where it was. Did it achieve in capturing those hopes and aspirations at that particular point?
That particular point, I was actually seated as a commissioner in the Cohesion and Integration Commission. And one of the things as the constitution was being promulgated was the fact that the issue of cohesion, unity, and integration was a cross-cutting issue across the entire constitution. So that for us, we were feeling then was a plus because we felt this is a document that will unity and cohesion amongst Kenyans. Of course, there was also a bit of a downside, and the downside being that we had hoped then, as commissioners sitting there, that with many commissions that were being created under the specific chapter 15, that we would include cohesion as one of the constitutional commissions so that it could not be scrapped at the whim of any persons or any bodies that felt that maybe they were interfering with their matters. So that was a mixed reaction, but we were, of course, very excited. And I think that many Kenyans, we were beginning then with hope that finally we were going to have something that we could rally around. Because the identification of Kenya as a nation had never quite helped to rally Kenyans together so that we would be able to feel that we were united enough to want to have a common agenda. And this constitution was going to give us that particular opportunity to do that.
And it's interesting you say that because even as we reflect on where we've been since 10 years, I want to bring it back to studio with Honorable Kioni on this one. From where we stand, we've had this for 10 years. You're seated as the chair of the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee. It's one thing to have a beautifully written document that you can have and promulgate. It's another thing actually effecting that document and making it essentially the ethos of the country. Where do you feel we stand in terms of implementation 10 years on?
I think there are quite a number of aspects where we need to say that we've done well as a country. Of course, not as well as perhaps many of us expected. But it's important to count on the gains, even as we look at areas that require some improvement. And on aspect, and especially one of the major areas that we achieved as a country is the area of devolution. I know there are those people who still think that perhaps we needed to have handled devolution differently. The units that we have are too many, 47 as opposed to 14 and the rest. But let me say this, even as we start on this debate. I think one of the things that Kenyans need to, and many of us, those of us who get an opportunity to come to this kind of shows, is to agree that we have a constitution and all the other drafts must fade from the table, because we are still confusing Kenyans with the Bomas draft, Kilifi draft, Kilifi 10 draft, and all those other drafts. And we now have a constitution that we should be working on, not on the basis of what we discussed at Bomas, because you see all those discussions that happened from perhaps in the 80s, all of them we were tied into this document, the constitution. And I said yesterday somewhere, and I want to repeat it, is that the document we have is a negotiated document where there was a give and take. And what we should be concentrating on is this document that we have, how are we implementing it? Without doubt, the areas that may require improvement, the areas that may require perhaps to be deleted. But I think we are concentrating too much on what we should have included in the document, right, as opposed to how are we implementing what is already provided in the Constitution. And as a chairman of CIOC, I am struggling even now to get even my colleagues in Parliament to help us focus on the implementation, as opposed to what was it that we left out in Boma's draft and the rest. Because if we go, and I'm not saying that all is lost. I mean, you cannot bring in new ideas. Yes, you can, but let us put more effort, more work, energy into implementing what is already there.
Right.
For example, like now, we have the 47 counties. And I can tell you that we are not going to reduce them in the foreseeable future. Not in the coming 10, 15, maybe even 50 years. I don't see us reducing them from 47 to any other number.
Right.
Even creating those regional blocks, you can only create them for as long as you allow the counties to remain as identities, because the people already within that county are proud of it. And some of them may not make economic sense, but they were not even meant to make economic sense. They were supposed to make political sense. Right. And for as long as they are making political sense, we have a country. You can continue trying to make economic sense out of it, but you're not going to take away a county from a community now, as it is, unless you really want to get us into unnecessary quarrels. There will be a cost to implementing some of these areas, and those are costs we must be ready to live with as a people. That's our history, and you cannot just wish it away. So I think we should be concentrating more on implementing. How can we make devolution make more sense to the people now than it is? How do we ensure that the resources that are being devolved are channeled towards development more as opposed to the current expenditure? And these are the things that, this is how we would benefit from this constitution. Okay. Of course, again, I want to say there are areas that in the governance we need to make some amendments so that, again, we are able to deliver to the Kenyans better and faster. But as I said, I think it will be important to focus more on implementing the constitution.
Let me get Millie in on that one as well at that particular point, yes, as we talk about implementing of the constitution. Millie, let's take it back to when President Kenyatta spoke about him discerning this as a constitutional moment. For very many Kenyans who heard that speech at that particular day, they thought when he says that, that's synonymous to meaning it's time to change the constitution. Already at that time, there's a lot of talk of the Building Bridges initiative and the referendum that's supposed to come with that as well. Do you think that's what the president meant when he spoke about this constitutional moment? Or is it doubling down and making sure you implement what you haven't managed to do in the last 10 years?
I think that the benefit we have, speaking 10 years after the promulgation, is that we have tried to implement the constitution, we have tried to see it work, and we have noted some of the pitfalls that still remain within the Constitution as crafted that perhaps may hinder the ability for us to be able to realize those fruits. If you look at some of the basic rights, I think the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution is one of the most renowned parts of this Constitution and the most celebrated, including the fact that then we got a strong constitutional court that was able to support its implementation and ensure that there were very few clawbacks, if any, to those rights that had been realized there. But look at some of them. Look at the issue of education and the gaps that we still realize in our ability to ensure that education is seen as a basic right. There's still quite a lot of work that needs to be done around that. Look at the issues of another basic right, life, which we think was adequately, but we realize still we have seen loss of life. We have seen reports from organizations such as IMLU telling us that there are certain the disappearances are increasing. We have seen abuse of power by the security forces, particularly the police. And these are gaps that we still find. We did set up a police commission. We did the Independent Police Commission. We did set up IPOA within that constitution, but we know what has happened with the implementation process. And this is a time to look back. I mentioned earlier when I was speaking about the issue of cohesion and unity being a cross-cutting issue. But we realized that the Gender and Equality Commission, that was the only constitutional commission given the mandate to ensure that non-discrimination and equality was promoted, has not been given the powers to be as effective as we anticipated so that that would be ensured. There are still issues of Kenyans feeling that they are left out. There are still issues of people feeling that the resources, the sharing of resources across the country and the receipt of services across the country are affected. We've seen this reflect in the health sector. So for me, I think that when the president was speaking about a constitutional moment was a realization that in the 10 years of implementation, we have noted the gaps that have not enabled us to perhaps realize the full potential that this constitution presents, and here an opportunity for us to be able to tighten the screws so that we are able to realize them better.
Kioni, I'll come to you. There's a tweet that I have, a tweet that has just come in from a friend of the show, Frederick Okango. He's saying the people of Kenya must remember that the basis of our political system is the right of the people to make and to alter constitutions of government whenever they feel it's not working for them. It will happen through BBI and Punguza Mzigo Kenya, but the constitution will definitely change. And when I look at this, for very many Kenyans, when you talk to them, yes, the constitution is at 10, but for them, that really isn't where their worry is. When you say that it's not working, because most Kenyans are talking about socio-economic issues. That's what they feel their biggest problems are. The constitution is fine, it can move forward, but it's bread and butter issues is where they stand right now. So when they say the constitution really isn't working, how do you break that down to your electorate in Ndaragwa? Because at the end of the day, they still want the services, they want to make money, and this whole thing of constitutional change doesn't fit in their immediate needs right now.
And I even before I come to that point, I want to say that a lot of the difficulties that or the shortcomings, or where we think, like Meli is saying, the issues of police harassment, the Commission of Gender or the Equality Commission not being seen to deliver on what perhaps what or to achieve what was has a lot to do with the persons we picked into those commissions. And these offices, however much you want to clothe them with constitutional protection, for as long as the persons who've been picked in those offices have no passion, they are not passionate about that, or they have political loyalty, less than as opposed to what they are expected to do. All they struggled a lot to get appointed to those offices, and it is you've been gifted because of what you did during a political period, campaigns, and the rest. I want to say that, and I say that even from Parliament, it will be very difficult to achieve many of the things you say. Some of the people who are involved in clamoring for these changes, the passion that was there is not with the same passion that we have with the people holding the offices. And I don't see how much more we need to amend the Constitution to make this happen. It has a lot to do with calling on the persons who are already holding those offices to live up to the expectations. And when it comes to the issues of bread and butter, true, if we cannot be able to help people improve their livelihood, if the economic situation in the country is not improving, again, it does not matter what kind of amendments you bring into the Constitution. Because first and foremost is that people must have something to eat. They must be able to pay for their, everything, including health, well-being, everyday's activity. And I think that is the aspect that the president has been addressing. What affects our continued economic growth? We hit well, perhaps towards the 4th year of our term, but from the 5th year and the 1st year of the next term, we dip. So it is really a question of the price that we have placed on an elective office. And that's what we need to deal with. That I totally agree. We need to really deal with it. Dilute it. Lower the stakes that come with being elected to the office of the president, to even becoming a member of parliament and the rest. So that we allow the country to continue with the economic momentum that will have been generated by any other previous government. Right. And this is where we were again fouled or caught by COVID-19. We were still trying to take off. And COVID-19 comes in, again it hits us and we dip, and that has made things very, very, very difficult. So reducing the political stakes, reducing the very, 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 I don't know whether you get it, when campaigns come, it's like after that the end of the world is coming. And you can see what leads to a person going to be sworn in again at the Uhuru Park. It's the stakes are so high, and we will need to reduce that.
We have a minute to go.
Once we reduce that, among other issues.
How do you reduce that, in your opinion? How do we?
Of course, it is by one of the proposals I haven't seen, but one of the things that people have talked about is, and I have said this before, is that one of the mistakes we made is leaving the opposition, the leaders of political parties, out of mainstream governance. And it was a clamor by the civil society that once you have learned for a political office or the presidential office, you cannot be allowed back into parliament or in the Senate, you cannot be nominated and the rest. You must stay out. That was really a naive thing that we allowed to happen. Because these are people who have a following. These are people who have something that they can offer to the leadership or the governance of the country. They are people who had ideas of how, if they had won, this is the way I would have managed. Why throw it into the dustbin? It needs to be allowed into the continued running of the governance. We have the president, yes, but the others can also come around the table and make their contributions. Okay. That needs to be looked at. And I'm saying that we need to address that without clouding it with other issues. If we bring too many issues to that, we are going to lose the very fundamental amendment that we need to work on. And I think that is what is key in the issues that needs to be amended. Okay. Be it with BBI, if not earlier, but certainly before we look at any other issue, that is an issue that we need to address.
Okay. That'll bring us to our first break right here on the show. As always, our question, 10 years on, what are the gains that have been made as far as the country is concerned after 10 years of this constitution? You can get us at the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. Take a short break. We're back after the break. Dr. Halwale also joins us on the show. This is K24 This Morning. Back after the break.